So welcome back to part two. We ended our last session with the term or the word empowering yourself. I said I love that term, and I came across it in some of your literature. Can we talk a little bit more?
Yeah, let's do. I mean, firstly, I'm interested. What excites you about that word, Carra? Because I see your eyes sparkle and you get alive. What is it for you?
I think I have to acknowledge the fact that we spend a lot of time talking about negatives. And this is such a great word because it allows you to talk about a positive aspect to managing things. So empowering yourself feels like you've got control and you've got the ability for change. So it's a strong word.
It is. I mean, for you as a vet in that space, do you feel like that's one of the things that has been discounted?
Definitely. I think, one of the great things about coaching is it's an opportunity to reflect. So, and also to see the blind spots.
Yeah.
We're very critical of the way we conduct ourselves. We focus on the negatives and the complaints and the bad days and the cases we didn't get quite right.
Yeah.
I think that's probably human nature and is relatable to most people. But we don't spend a huge amount of time talking about the positives, and that's one thing that coaching does, is that it makes you aware that you're doing a pretty good job, and it's not all bad, and that you have the capability and the skill set, although it may not be practiced, to manage difficult times.
That's just it, that there's the resources. And I think that is that empowering yourself is, like you were saying about the internal reflection, it's about looking internally and realizing I am capable, competent, and whole, which means that every problem that I have that sits with me in my consult room, I do have the ability to find the solutions for it. It may not be evident now, but I do have the thinking skills. I do have the reasoning skills. OP has trained vets on how to think through diagnostically a case to get the answers that they need. And somewhere along the line we get stuck. And I think it does have to do with the internal critic. I think the little gremlins that sit on our shoulders that have either come from our childhood or come from a parent or a lecturer, it could be from anybody who wants to discount the fact that we know that we can actually do this and that we have the skill sets to do it. So it's that self-confidence in myself, because...
So you can't rely on someone else to empower you.
No, it would be so much easier if we could blame somebody else, right?
Yeah.
But the hard work has to be done within me. And you've just made me think about something now that I think is important to mention, is that one of the things that we see that is closely linked to the empowerment part, because to be empowered means that you've made that next step forward. But the space that holds before that is my identity. And we see so many vets. If I was to ask a vet, who are you? They go, I'm a vet. And then I'll go, no, who are you? And they go, I'm Dr. So-and-so. And it's very difficult for vets to separate themselves from the work that they do, because it has been so absorbed and so ingrained into everything.
Every day.
I mean, you think about it. You drive home, you're thinking of your cases. You're in the shower, you're thinking of your cases.
You're in the shops and you see
your clients. They're hiding in the frozen
You have a friend and they message you about their dog or cat.
Exactly. So. And sometimes the worst hours. And so what often happens is that if a vet has a bad vet day, they then think they are bad. My identity is now messed with. Now you couple that with a few bad vet days, and now all of a sudden I'm a bad person. And then that becomes the spiral for the depression, and the self-confidence starts getting eaten away by the owners who want to put you on Facebook and want to take you to counsel and all those different things.
So is this why, sorry, I'm digressing a little bit. Is this why it's really important to select your working environment, to make sure that you're a good fit for that practice? Or
I think I mean, we've been talking about this.
Or should it make no difference?
I think it does, and I think it has to do with the people that you work with. Firstly, I think you need to be around like-minded people. Just to finish off the thoughts about identity, is that we actually need to see ourselves as, I am a vet who likes gardening, who does DIY, who loves it could be CrossFit. There are other aspects to us as individuals. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. And so when you are having a bad day, there are other aspects to your life that bring value. Your value as an individual cannot be only from what you do. Veterinary is what you do, not what you are. You do vet, you not are vet.
I don't know. Like, what are you?
Yeah.
I'm a vet. You
Exactly.
know?
So there we
It's
go.
so ingrained.
That's part of the identity. My identity needs to be in that I am a balanced individual. I am capable, competent, and whole. I'm not just a doctor. And so when my identity becomes so hooked in what I do, it's open to now having pitfalls.
Or letting go.
Yeah. And so it's about creating balance. Our bodies are designed for balance. And so creating a balance in who I am is important in order to survive the ups and downs of my work environment. If I have a bad coaching day, it doesn't make me Des a bad person. It just means that was a really crap day, and tomorrow it will be better. But we've got to be careful that our identity is not rooted. But going back to our practice environment, I think it's important that vets, and particularly younger vets, understand that they are not just being interviewed for their skill set, but they need to interview the practice to find out if this is an environment they want to be in. And I think that we do need to have it that when you're in the interview process of finding a practice, it needs to be a place that you feel you fit in and gel with the other people, that it's an environment where you can grow professionally, where they do have a lot of support, and it's not just about pushing through the numbers and the patients, but it's also about the care. So you've got to understand you and what your values are as a person to understand if you will fit into that environment well.
And is it a case of asking questions about that, or do you advise actually spending some time?
I do. Spending some time is important. And firstly, spending some time understanding yourself. So you hit on the word self-reflection. And I think that is one of the biggest indicators of somebody's ability to grow professionally if they can self-reflect. OP, you'll see they use a lot of reflect on this passage, and there's always reflect on this. But there's a skill in there, right? Because it means I have to look internally. What if I don't like what's going on internally? So I run away from it. So I sometimes have to look inside myself and go, do I even like me? Because how am I expecting to work with other people? If I don't like me, how are they supposed to like me? And then if I understand myself better, then I'm able to understand if I will fit into an environment better, or how I will land in that, and how can I contribute to this team.
Or if it's toxic, whether you need to get out of it.
Exactly.
Because it's going to stunt your growth as a professional. And
that's it. Yeah, and harm you. Yeah. And that takes a long journey to come out of. Working with professionals, working with doctors and nurses who've been in toxic environments, it's a journey, and it's a sad. It's preventable. I think you need to know that. Yeah.
So general employment, I know that you're part of that whole recruitment process, and you help business owners select key sort of team members in order for them to come in and be part of a team rather than having the potential of another or a toxic person.
So human code, there's two divisions. We've got the transformational, which is what I'm involved in. So it's the people development, it's the growth work within the people individually and as their teams. And then Ari Penning is our industrial psychologist, and he does all our transactional stuff. So he does the recruitment processing, he does profiling. So we are currently working on a profiling technique for toxicity to find out, are you employing a toxic person? And as well as Myers-Briggs and other personality profiles that will tell you about this person that you're looking at interviewing for a position, if they will fit your team. And, you don't want somebody like everybody. Sometimes you need a person who brings a different skill set or dynamic to balance the team. So how do you know that? And as well as payroll. So, it offers the HR stuff that usually can become problematic for practices. Vets at the end of the day want to do vet. They want to look after their patients. They want to find solutions to problems. They want to do what they're trained at. But when you own your own business, there's so much else that comes that can be...
And you may not have business acumen, or you may not have the capacity to develop that skill set. So
exactly. And so it's about being wise enough to know when to call and help, and people who are good at doing that. And because we work exclusively in the veterinary profession, we're able to provide a real eyes-on understanding of what it is that practices need. And so we've got incredible payroll lady who sets us up. Ari does all the interviews. He goes and checks recruits. He does background checks, profiling. So we feel like we understand the profession well enough to know what is a good indicator and what's not. And so we're excited about offering both, because very often the people problems can come from bad recruitment. And then also what happens when you in the situation where someone doesn't fit your team well, and then what do you do? So yeah,
absolutely, it causes more stresses and strains
really
on a really
does.
stressed and strained profession.
Yeah.
So let's talk about general health and well-being. Obviously, I always I come across a little girl and she's like, I want a dog, I want a cat, or whatever. I'm like, you have to, as a pet owner, and understanding the benefits I have of having my own pets. I would always, if people are in a financial position to do it, would advise them to be pet owners, because I think it just brings so many benefits. What are your thoughts on the...
So when we talk about mental health, I've had a personal experience with this where I think I totally underestimated the power of a pet. So we had always grown up with a home full of animals, and recently I'd moved into a smaller home, and I didn't have my pets with me, and there was definitely a loss, and there was this space and this gap. And then have now moved into a bigger property where I can have pets, and my heart is so full. Like, I didn't realize, I knew, when you know that something's good for you, but then you have excuses why it's probably not a good idea, or you just don't have energy. And so we've got our cute little cat back again, and it reminded me of why pets are so important, and particularly in a family dynamic. Firstly, it's so important for children to be raised with animals. There is a component of compassion. It's teaching children responsibility. It's the whole aspect of a family dynamic that things have needs and consequences and all those things that are important for early childhood development. But then also even for older families. So we look at the elderly, and we look at maybe families whose children have now left the home, they're empty nesters. Pets are important.
One companions.
That they are. So there's a few. There's a reason as a companion. The one of the main ones that actually feed directly into mental health is the touch aspect. So one of the things about human beings that's so interesting is we need to be touched.
That's why a hug is so good.
Yes. Even if you're not particularly a hugger, you'll still find that when you're feeling sad or you're not feeling okay, a hug makes you feel better. We're made for contact, we're made for connection, and animals provide that. So even for somebody who might be on their own, who isn't living with a family or living with other individuals in their home, having a pet is that ability to touch. We need to touch. And so it's just that contact with another live being that is so important, and it's the touch, the stroke aspect. So there is something in that.
So if you've had a bad day, go home and stroke your dog.
Stroke your pet. And then again, like with animals, it's the purring of the cats. It's the little noises. Those actually have been shown to lower our anxiety levels.
Wow.
It's having something to care for. It's looking outside of ourselves. Again, when we become too internally focused, that's where opportunity for anxiety and depression comes. When we look externally, so when I put my focus onto something like a pet or onto another human being or something else, then all of a sudden my gaze is lifted and I'm no longer looking into self-pity. I'm looking out again. Okay. So there are so many good reasons why having pets in our home. And I love what you said about responsible ownership, because it's about being honest about what it is I can afford and how many. I once had a guy who said to me, the food is so expensive. And I said, well, if you're feeding 10 animals, it will be. But if you had one, it would actually be fine. And then it's educating yourself and knowing how to look after your pet responsibly. I think all of that is coupled. So again, it's that responsible aspect that's important.
And now, a word from our amazing sponsors who make the Pause and Effect podcast possible. To make a promise implies trust. To make a pledge creates expectation. And to make a commitment initiates responsibility. For more than 25 years, we have made it our mission to take the ifs, buts, and maybes out of premium pet food. That's why our experts put the best science behind our food, so your pet's health is put first. That's why when you seek value, we strive to give you more, like protecting your pets with our free accident benefits. And when you need great tasting food, our fresh meat taste delivers. You see, what sets us apart is not one thing, it's all these things combined. Because we understand that when it comes to your pet's health, you don't want doubt and uncertainty, you want absolutes, the absolute best given your means, like premium veterinary quality food of real value that doesn't cost an arm and a paw. So rest assured that any claim we make, we stand by. It's our commitment to your pets and our promise to you. In fact, we're so confident in what we stand for that we have made the ultimate promise to you. It's called the Ultra Pet Promise, 100% money back guarantee, a no ifs, no buts, and no maybes kind of promise. We call it our satisfaction guarantee. Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Carra.
Hi, Doc. It's Jackson the Jack Rossi here, and boy am I itchy.
Are you on a hypoallergenic diet?
Hyper what now?
Changing to a special diet will really help. And Just for Pets have a massive range. And flea and tick medication, special shampoo.
Ooh, how quick can you get some?
Order today and we'll deliver pronto.
I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Get it all to your door.
Let's get back to our conversation on the Pause and Effect podcast. One of the things I don't want to lose the opportunity to ask you is about pets and loss.
Yes.
It's devastating, and obviously as a professional I would love to know how best to support my clients during loss, but also as an owner we're very used to sort of suppressing. How do you advise we tackle loss?
So there's quite a journey that takes place for an owner when we get to the point. So I'm not going to go through when you give the best advice of knowing when it's time to put a pet to sleep. But I think it's important for us to acknowledge the emotional journey that we go on when we are going through that sense. So first thing is we all know that we will outlive our pets. So we do this. It's called anticipated grief. So anticipatory grief is I understand that at some stage I am going to be putting my pet down, and then it's knowing. I think the first thing is having conversations with your vet to know that you are making the right decision at the right time. I do think that some people maybe leave it too long, and then that's when the feelings of guilt start entering in. And so we've got to watch out for guilt and shame when it comes to putting pets down. And for a vet is understanding that is very often the psychological status that an owner is sitting with when having to make this decision. Lots of guilt and shame.
And so it's a great opportunity to support your clients.
Absolutely. And so there are some ways to do this. The first one is understanding the grief cycle. So the grief cycle is 5 steps. They can either take place in your consult room within 30 minutes, or they can take months, depending, are you sitting with that kidney condition that has now slowly been deteriorating, or are you seeing your owner for chemo every week, and now you've walked that step with that owner, and now we've gotten to the point where euthanasia is the next step. So the first one is to acknowledge that there's going to be anger, and the anger very often can be directed at you as the professional and at your professional team, but it actually is it's an internal thing. The easiest way to diffuse the anger that an owner will feel, because the anger is coming from, could I have done better? What if I had brought it in for that lump sooner? What if we had done the X-ray and not the ultrasound?
Or worst case, when it's sudden and
yes, it's my
some
fault.
sort of accident.
Yes, exactly. So the anger is an internal acknowledgement that I've lost control. And so what you're dealing with is the fear of losing control. And the best way to subdue that is to go to the root of that and is acknowledge the emotion. So as a vet, when I see my client getting angry, is going, I can see by your reaction how strong your connection is. The stronger the connection with the pet, the bigger the emotion will be. So if you can understand that dynamic, you can speak to the roots. And very often when you acknowledge the emotion, the tears come. And then the client starts crying and snotting and teary all over your shoulder. Another one is denial. So very often this is not happening. Usually that's the first step is... This is not happening if we just wait a little bit longer. Let's just see what happens. And you'll see that a lot of time the stalling of I'm not. And what happens for an owner is in this stage they ask a lot of questions. So you'll be bombarded with a lot of questions, but they're only taking about a third of the information you're saying. So you have to repeat yourself, go over and over and over again what you're saying, because then their body actually psychologically is their brain slows down, and they'll almost tell you there's been a slowing down of time. Everything went so slow while you were explaining this to me.
And to explain it in a language that they understand, rather than using technical terms.
Don't use the
frightening words.
Yeah, don't use the highfalutin technical terms. It doesn't make you look more clever. It just makes them feel more stupid.
Yeah.
And then the next one is the bargaining. So there was that bargaining of, Doc, if only we had tried the different drug, if only we had maybe gone and seen the other vet, if only I had come earlier, maybe I should have come after hours and I didn't. So there's this bargaining with themselves. We also see in the grief process, a vet will go through their own, so every grief process offers an opportunity for learning, and that's for the vet as well. Okay. You may find that as a vet, you will also go through your own bargaining cycle of
could have done more.
Yes.
How could I have spotted them better?
What if I had seen the
Did
linear?
I miss something?
Yeah, I didn't see the linear object, or I saw the linear object, I missed the parvo, and then now the bargaining starts happening within myself. Why didn't I? What if I had? All those kind of things. So we've got to be careful that as a vet you don't go into your own semi-cycle. So basically you don't parallel with your client too closely, because you can often parallel in an emotional cycle with them. And then the depression. So the depression or the flatness stage comes in grief. And this is normal. So you've got to anticipate that dip for the client, that there's going to be an experience of loss. And the thing about death is it's the only thing we don't have control over. And that's what's hard for owners. That's what's hard for any human being. Us as well, when we lose our pets, even as a vet, it's tough. I don't have control over this. Yes, you may be using the green injection, but at the end of the day, it is still out of your control. And so it's that sense of loss and out of controlness that we struggle with. And again, it's in the state of uncertainty, in the state of not having control. What do I have control over? And that's feeling it. Feel the pain.
Feel the pain.
And I think we need to let owners know. I always say to vets, when you have a client who's sitting there crying, this has to be the place where owners can bawl and snot and cry.
It'll be okay. Stop that.
Yeah, that's it all. When you see parents telling their children, big boys don't cry.
It's not sore.
Yeah, that's it. They fine. No, you don't need to.
Yeah.
No, we cry here. This is a safe space to cry. We need to make veterinary practice psychologically safe for our owners. They need to be able to experience whatever emotion comes with loss. We need to be able to hold that space with them and be comfortable with it. And I think very often it's hard to get into that space with that person. And the thing is,
carry on with the day.
Functioning with your day, yeah. So the thing is, you don't have to get in there. You just have to provide it. And it's just saying you can be sad here. This is and normalize loss. Because if they don't go through this grief process, they do get stuck. What I do need to iterate for vets is that it is not your responsibility that if an owner gets psychologically stuck, so they get stuck in their grief, they're not moving past that depressive state, is where you recommend that they go and seek help from a GP. That is not the responsibility of a vet. Your responsibility was to the patient. To the owner, it's really just to direct them to somebody who's more equipped to support them in that manner. But I think what often happens is because you've journeyed with this owner for so long, you end up taking on that responsibility. And so that's a good boundary to have out, is knowing when to go, I'm here, but there are people who can support you better than I can, and I trust them with you, And then the last phase is the acceptance phase, and that's where you'll hear the storytelling. So this is where the owner will go, I remember Kiki when she was just a puppy, and we got her, and I remember those fluffy ears, and they start the storytelling. That's so important. And encourage them to go and tell the story of Kiki at home, and to tell the receptionist, and to go out and share their story of their pet, because the more we engage in the storytelling, the better the healing is for us at the end of that grief cycle. And so
or to share it via an email or a Facebook post,
exactly,
or whatever,
or plant a tree, or donate your time, do something in that memory that has reality and meaning
to you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. That's really, really great. And I think definitely we need to practice this, because it's a very difficult part of our jobs. People always say, you must hate it because, and I think you touched on it before. You said it's sometimes more difficult when people delay that inevitable, and there's suffering associated with it than to support people through.
Yeah. I've never heard a vet say that they've despised a good death.
No.
That's part of being a vet, is providing a good death for the patient.
And we are so privileged to be able to do that.
Yeah. So it's when it's that emotional stuckness that becomes the drain. And also when it's delayed unnecessarily, I think that's a struggle. Yeah, definitely.
And your feelings on replacing pets, because obviously we are asked that a lot and it's difficult for us to answer because I think it's maybe an individual decision, but when do they replace their pet? Should they mourn through? Should there be that feeling? Is it okay to replace that puppy with another if in the event of a terrible accident? How long should people wait? Is there a right or wrong answer?
That's such a good question, because I think it's so individual to each family unit, and I think that's a good indicator is have we as a family gone through the grief cycle, as opposed to are we substituting our pain with something else. So very often is to avoid the pain of losing a pet, we substitute it with another pet so that we don't feel the pain. And I think if you're real with yourself of have we grieved, have we done everything we need to do as a family to have said goodbye or to feel that. And then knowing, I'm always adamant that pets find owners. Like when you think of shelters or animals that need homes, like I'm always adamant that animals find you. They find the homes they're meant to go, and so your animal will find you at the right time.
This is why my pets challenge me so much. Thanks.
Exactly.
They just know how to test me tearing things up.
So I think having a conversation with your vet as well. Your vet journeyed with you. They also know what you're capable of. They know what your home can handle. I think also a lot of people maybe make choices in pets that maybe don't fit their lifestyle or maybe fit their family.
Emotional choices on, are they so cute? Or
Exactly. Or we've always had boxers, so we should have a boxer. But actually, we don't have the right family. We don't have the right space for a boxer. So I think keeping in touch with your vet about what is a good pet selection is also important, and knowing what that type of breed or what that type of pet will mean for you as a family is important as well. So speaking to your vet about the right decision is important too.
I love that advice. Thank you so much for joining me today. You have given so many phenomenal bits of advice and resources.
Well, Carra, thank you for your passion. I love what you're doing.
I could listen to you all day. You've got so much to share.
I think we can chat forever. But thank you for the privilege of sharing my passion for what you're doing in the profession.
And all the best with your business, Human Co.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I think it's going to be a great success.
Okay.
Thanks, Des.
Pleasure.
We have an exciting announcement to make. We are looking for guest speakers who are passionate about the pet industry and sponsors to support future episodes. Are you an expert in pet training, nutrition, or behavior? Maybe you're a veterinarian with insights to share, a pet store owner with unique experiences, or a pet product inventor. We want to hear from you. The Pause and Effect podcast is a platform for industry professionals like you to showcase your knowledge, experiences, and stories. As a guest speaker on our podcast, you'll have the opportunity to share valuable information, engage with our audience, and have your voice heard in the pet community. Whether you want to discuss training techniques, emerging pet care trends, or the importance of mental stimulation for pets, we want to feature you and your expertise. So, if you're passionate about pets and have something to say, we invite you to join us on an upcoming episode of the Pause and Effect podcast. But wait, that's not all. The Pause and Effect podcast is also seeking sponsors to support our mission of educating and entertaining pet lovers worldwide. By becoming a sponsor, you'll gain exposure to our engaged audience and have your brand associated with the love and care that we have for our four-legged friends. If you own a pet-related business, offer pet products or services, or simply want to align your brand with our pet-loving community, we'd love to partner with you. As a sponsor, your brand will be featured prominently in our episodes and our social media channels. It is a great opportunity to showcase your offerings to a dedicated audience of pet enthusiasts. So whether you're an expert in the pet industry looking to share your knowledge, or a business seeking to reach a pet-loving audience, we want to hear from you. To apply as a guest or to inquire about becoming a sponsor of the Pause and Effect podcast, please contact me at drcarra@pauseandeffect.co.za. Get in touch and let's discuss the various opportunities. Thank you for joining us today. We can't wait to welcome our future guest speakers and sponsors to the Pause and Effect podcast. Remember, every episode is an opportunity to celebrate our four-legged friends.